Make sure you got plenty of grease on the threads of this thing too. Didn't think so. Bring the torch out here. It's going to be hot for a while. I'm going to let the tool cool off before I try to put it on the other one. I'll dunk it in some water. It was quite a bit to get those out of there, and as you can see, they're pretty seized up. But when you start heating this housing up, or this bore, you want to do it as quick as you can, because you want to cause the outer part to expand, but you don't want all the heat soaking in to the pin and it expanding too. Some of it will, but you want to try to get that pin out of there while this is expanded out here, or whichever one you're looking at, before the heat starts to expand, soak into the pin and start expanding that, because then you're defeating the purpose. If they're both the same temperature and expanded at the same rate, then it's going to kind of defeat the purpose. But people had tried to do it with a handheld blowtorch. I don't know how they're getting anywhere with that. It never worked for me. But I'm going to try to get away with leaving these bushings in here, because they're really a nightmare to change. And if I had to do it, if it was someone else's truck and I had to do it, then I would take a Sawzall and just carefully cut through the that little bushing there. You see it's a little bit more than 1/16 of an inch thick right there. I'd cut through that in maybe 1 or 2 places, and then I can get a screwdriver or a small chisel and pick underneath it and lift. And once you get that started, then around that cut you can get it out of there. But this cast iron out here is a lot softer than this bushing, so you got to watch what you're doing with a Sawzall and a metal cutting blade, because you cut through this bushing and you'll start cutting into this. This will cut real easy. You don't want to, I mean, it's not going to hurt it if you do cut it a little bit, but you don't want to cut it very much. Sorry about the chainsaw noise in the background, but that's neighbor doing something. I hope I can get this on camera. I can't see what's on the camera, but I'm going to clean these holes out, these bushings out with files like this. That's an old one. I just cleaned it up with a wire brush. It looks like it's still good. I got a new one here if this one's giving me trouble. But what happens with these bushings in there, here's a new one. They got a gap in them, and once that's installed properly, eventually moisture gets behind this bushing and starts rusting out inside this bore, and that rust will swell up and cause that bushing to close tight. When that bushing closes tight, it's squeezed tight on this and it won't move. That's why I had to drive them out like I did. And that's why these bushings are going to be tight. I may not be able to get them freed up, but I'm going to try to clean them out with a file. And if I can, a file and some sandpaper out of my auto body supplies, that's going to be good enough for me. I got these cleaned out enough to satisfy me. I'm going to take some, I don't know that it matters what kind, but I like to use waterproof grease. The kind that's made for like boat wheel bearings, boat trailer bearings. Put that in there, and then put my springs. Sometimes I stick them in a vise, and sometimes I just stick them in a hole like this right here. I don't know if I got this on camera. I'm going to take a look and see. Okay. I'm going to break the paint loose on these. Get that stuck in a hole or in something, and then break the paint loose so these will move. Do it on all of them. Both sides of this one, and otherwise they're very hard to stretch and get everything in place. You got to make sure these aren't. Do that on both of these too. Just jam that in something, and then that'll get that paint broken off of there. Then that don't fight you as much when you're putting them on. Okay, now the side that these go on, going to have a small hole with small pins next to these here. The big pins go in here. The holes are big there. That's where these anchor pins that we just got done putting on. These go in here in this hole about 4 inches back from here. And it goes in like that, and then you got to hold that inside with your finger or pliers or something. And then you tap this down. I hope we're getting this on camera. Tap it in there until it goes in there like that. It has to go through the other hole on the other side. Do both of them like that. Both brake shoes that way. Put this thing in here with this spring clip here. I like to have it with the U-shaped part, this round part out here sticking out where I can reach it. These corners, these little ears right here, they go in this hole here on both sides. And sometimes they can be a challenge to get them in there, but they go. Okay, that one's done. Let me get the other one done, and then I'll put these shoes together and hang them on there. This part here I really cannot do on camera by myself. Got to have somebody to hold the camera, but I'm going to try and explain what I'm doing. Knock these pins in over here, I'm going to hang this long spring and tie these two shoes together on those pins like that. And then I'm going to pick this whole assembly up and hang it where it goes in place, and then I'm going to wrestle it into position. Got to have my cams where we're clear. The top of this point to this cam right here has to be clear. It can't be turned all the way back here. It's got to be out here just a little bit, just enough where these rollers here will have clearance to drop straight down on this one, and this one pulls straight up onto that one, because that spring's going to be, that big long spring is going to be fighting with us over here. And then when we're done and get that in position, I'm going to try to get a screwdriver or something and shove it through out here someplace, and try to make sure we got this spring in the middle. There's like a little detent, there's like a little groove in the middle of that spring. It's not going to hurt anything if it's off to one side, but you like to keep it in the middle if you can, on both top and bottom. So let me set the camera up so you can watch me hang this thing on here and fight with it a little bit till it's on there. Well, was there. Okay. There's a reason why I didn't put that hub on there first. This is about 5 times easier to put the brake shoes on without the hub there than it is with it on there. I usually do the back side first, but I'm going to show you how I do this. I hang that spring on there, and then you can't have weak hands. You got to have some muscle in your hands. Grab this one with pliers, and I squeeze it really tight, because I don't want to slip and have this thing bite a chunk out of my hand. And then I pull this thing down and hook it in there. Anyway, you got to do that on both sides. That's the one that takes a little bit of practice. Well, now it's time to put a little bit of oil on this. Wipe the dust off of it with a rag and put some oil on that, and oil up the hub a little bit and put it on there. Directions said to wipe some of this on here, so let's go ahead and do that. I hardly ever go wrong reading the directions. Once in a while I see a misprint. Okay, this should go on up there, and it is aluminum in my case. It's not extremely heavy, but I'm not going to be able to push this seal all the way on to where it mates up here. That's going to be a little bit more than what I can do. I'm going to end up putting the nuts on there and tightening those down to get it on. Well, maybe this is going to go on there. A little bit of dust got on my bearing here. Any good, as long as it's not something that'll cut metal, should be okay. Push that in there. And my first nut's the one that's got the little knot on it. That knot has to face out. It's been out here a couple of days. It's got some dust on it, wind blowing. See, with this hub up here, it'd be a lot more fun getting those brake shoes on. I'm going to tighten that down. This is real important, especially if you're changing bearing and races, to make sure this is seated really tight. Then you back it off, and then you seat it down again just a little bit. Let me find the socket that fits that. Okay, I just tightened this down. I didn't set the torque wrench. I don't know exactly what the torque is, but out here reaching about 3 feet out, and I pushed about maybe 50 pounds worth on there. Got quite a bit of torque on there, at least 150, 200 pounds of torque, and the hub just barely will turn. It's tight. We don't want it that tight. But that's your preload. That's making sure your bearing races and seals and everything are seated. Now we back this off. So it's loose, and then we snug it back down until it seats, and then we back it off. Not quite a quarter turn. Let's see here. I'm going to go about to here with it. And we shouldn't feel any bearing play at all here. I really can't say that I feel any bearing play. It does roll though. Bearings don't have a lot of grease on them, so you can hear them a little bit, but that won't last, because we're going to put oil in there. So that's what I forgot to do. I got to take this back off and put oil in that hub. I forgot to do that. But I'm not going to preload that bearing again. It doesn't really need it, because I know we're seated tight in there. Now I'm going to get a squeeze bottle and pour some oil inside this area inside there. Okay, that's seated. Now let's go up a little less than a quarter turn. Now this has this key on here. It's got to line up in this groove, and that knob needs to go in one of these holes. If it doesn't go in a hole here, we can move it. I don't really want to turn it that far out, so I'm going to flip it over, go the other side. There, lines up pretty close there now. Didn't have to back it off much. Okay, that's on there good. Now then, put this on there. Put that on there. Now that's not gonna, that inner nut is not gonna move. It might wiggle slightly, but it's not gonna turn. And we're gonna put this outer nut on tight. Put this on here tight. Now do as I say, not as I do. It's supposed to go around 300, 350 foot-pounds. I'm not going to set the torque wrench. I'm just going to tighten it down on there. But it's my truck, and I've done it too many times. I got a real good idea about where we're at with that. Doesn't have to be exactly the torque specs. That's just a good reference to have. It's a good place to torque it down to, or thereabouts. Now I'm going to clean all this off with a clean rag and some brake cleaner. And the axle, axle surface, I'm going to clean that as well. You're better off using silicone on these than you are a paper axle shaft gasket, because an axle shaft gasket will end up leaking oil. Maybe not dripping, but it'll be seeping. You'll have a wet oil stain around it before too long, within a year or two probably. Paper gaskets are great for holding back antifreeze and water, but they're not the best for holding back oil unless they're rubberized paper. The water, or any water soluble, will make the paper gasket swell up, and it'll make it tighter after it's been on there a while and exposed to water. But oil does not make it swell up. It absorbs oil, but it doesn't make the paper swell up. So it doesn't get tighter like paper gasket does on something holding back water. I'm going to do the same thing on the axle shaft, and then we'll put the glue on there when the axle's clean. Then I'll put the glue on there when it's ready to go in. Got my axle shaft cleaned, and brand new tube of glue, silicone ultra gray gasket maker 82194. Don't throw these caps away when you use up a tube of glue. Save it. Most of the time you're going to crack this cap by screwing it on there too tight. You're going to crack it, and then the glue is going to dry up here, and you'll be poking holes in the side of the tube to get glue out of it. Save these caps and try to remember not to screw it on too tight. I could put glue on the shaft too, but I'm not going to. I'll just put this in there and make sure there's no garbage on the end of this. Shouldn't have. This never got on the ground. This was sticking straight up the whole time. I'm just going to have to bounce this a little bit. Get in the center. There it goes. On there. Now I have to tighten it down quick because that glue is going to dry after a while, and you don't want the glue to be uneven. You want it to be seated down tight and even so that it doesn't leak. I'm just going to set these with a impact about like I would lug nuts on a car, or not a car, but let's say a pickup truck, because these are a little bit bigger than a car. And I'm going to go crisscross I'm not going to go around in a circle. I'm going to go crisscross, back and forth, crisscross. I just got done cleaning up this drum, and I've got some stuff I want to point out. This is really crusty and raised up right here and over here and a couple other spots. The drum is good across here, but I'm going to scrape all of that off of there and get it flat and smooth, because I don't know exactly where that drum was on here, which bolt hole matched up with which stud, and this is all flat in here, but it's really, that's just rust. This is all aluminum corrosion and rust, and the only way to fix this is to sandblast this whole thing, or just buy a whole new hub. That's a lot of money. So, but since this is flat here, it all stuck to the drum, not to this. So I'm going to clean it off of here, because if I don't, the drum's not going to go on there flat and flush like it should. It's going to be crooked. The brakes are going to be crooked. There's going to be issues with that. The lug nuts are going to end up coming loose. So I just wanted to point that out. Get that crap off of there, get it flat so that this thing mounts nice and flush and tight on that hub. I'm ready to put the drum on there. I'm just going to put it on there, and I'm going to tighten up the brakes until they touch, and then I'll put the wheels on it, lock them down, then I'll reach back around here and adjust the brakes. I'll tighten them up all the way till they're fairly snug, and then I'll back it off half a turn. I can't vouch for everything at Harbor Freight, but I'll tell you what, their floor jacks are really good. Here's the other one I got just like it, and it's been sitting on this for 2 days, or is it 3 now? I can't remember, because I had to go. I couldn't work on it yesterday. I had to go somewhere. Yeah, it's just sitting on that 3-ton floor jack underneath that axle, and I haven't pumped it up again. I just pumped it up once, took the wheels off, brakes, everything, did that job. I'm putting the wheels back on, and I didn't have to pump it up any. There's no jack stand under it. That's a good jack. All done with the new brakes, the hub seal, seized, anchor pins, all that. It's all done. All right, thanks for watching.